A big day for the New York Jets transaction-wise, placing linebacker Quincy Williams on the injured reserve list as he nurses a shoulder injury. Plus, the team also swung a trade for young cornerback Jarvis Brownlee Jr. How do these moves affect the Jets defense and the outlook on the unit moving forward? We'll talk about that and much more, all coming up here on NY Flight Jets Talk, joined by Justin Freed of the Jet Press, baby. Let's go.
This is NY Flight Jets Talk with Connor Long. NY Flight Jets Talk. We're talking Jets. NY Flight Jets Talk with special guests. NY Flight Jets Talk. Here's your host, Connor Long. Jets.
What is going on, New York Jet fans? Hello, everyone, and welcome back here into another edition of NY Flight Jets Talk. Thank you all for joining us as we come to you guys live right here on this Tuesday evening, September 23rd, 2025. Make sure you drop down below, smash that like button, hit subscribe. That is the free way to help us grow here on the channel. We want to hear from you guys. We want to engage with you guys. You could submit all your questions, your comments, your thoughts in the chat for us to get to. You can call into the show with the link that is pinned in the description down below. You see the details for our membership raffle, our new raffle on the scrolling ticker down below, and ways you can get in, the prizes that you guys are entering for. We appreciate the hell out of you guys, and we appreciate your support as always right here on the show. And joining me right now here on the show, the head honcho, the commander-in-chief, the leader over at Fanside. It's the Jet Press, the great Justin Freed, also the host of the Jet Press podcast. A very lengthy intro there for you, Justin. Thank you, as always, for coming on with us right here on the show. Always a blast talking to you about this team, and the people out there watching, the 150 guys in the building, notice the late start. That's become pretty much a tradition right here on the show, and especially with Justin, because Justin and I have a tendency to do the show before the show every single time
This
we
is
get
true.
the opportunity to speak to each other.
This is true, buddy. We were yapping for a little bit before we went live. Now I appreciate the warm welcome. I love the new intro. I don't know how new that is, but it's different from the last time I was here.
Yes.
I was vibing in the background. Like, this is catchy as hell. Appreciate you having me, buddy.
I appreciate it. Yes, we're trying to do a new intro every single year, so we might have to add some clips of Aaron Glenn saying this isn't the same old Jets despite an 0-3 start, and fans already throwing knives at his head 3 games into his campaign. That's where I'm going to start, Justin. And I wrote a column about this for Jets X Factor that'll be coming out shortly on just the overall morale of this Jets fan base. And it's funny I use morale because moral victories has been a huge word tossed around these past few weeks. But I think Jet fans really need to take it easy on Aaron Glenn. And this is what I emphasize so much in the article. I understand the pain. I really, really do. Over 10 years without winning more than 7 games, 15 years, no playoff appearance. Trust me, I get it. But this isn't all Aaron Glenn's fault. We see people coming after him on social media for dancing after Will McDonald's touchdown, for clapping after the game. It's like you yell at and criticize Robert Saleh for acting stoic on the sidelines, and now Aaron Glenn's getting passionate about one of the biggest plays this team has made, really, since they were last in the playoffs. Well, Connor, we like when people are when our head coach is passionate and calling players out. Well, did you see Aaron Glenn shoo Arian Smith out after he committed a illegal formation penalty in the first quarter? So I think the criticism on head coach Aaron Glenn really, really needs to die down, Justin.
Yeah, that stuff like that's ridiculous. Like I'm with you here, where I understand the pain that Jets fans have gone through, and they've gone through even more than we have. I'm 27 years old. You are about half that. Whatever, I forget how old you are now, but there are Jets fans out there who have been watching this team for 50 years, and they understand the pain even more than we do. And I get that. And I'm not going to criticize any fan for being upset and for not wanting the moral victories and for running out of patience, because this franchise has been in football purgatory in the basement of the NFL for decades at this point. The little glimmers and oases of hope in the middle, but this is a bad franchise, and they've been bad for a very long time. So I understand why patience is running thin. But the micro analyzing of Aaron Glenn's mannerisms, his actions, his words is ridiculous. It's not productive in any way at all. I don't really give a shit. Sorry if I can't say that.
All good. You can let it fly.
Yeah, I don't really give a shit if Aaron Glenn is saying stuff like instant coffee in his pressers. That doesn't bother me. I don't really care. I don't care if he's clapping after games. I don't care if he's getting animated on the sideline and if he's dancing and celebrating his players making a 17-point comeback on a miraculous blocked field goal return for a touchdown. Like that does not bother me. I don't really care. I care about the on-field product. And there's a lot of reasons that you could be critical of Aaron Glenn, of Darren Muji and this Jets regime. I mean, they're 0-3. Not that, we were talking about this a little bit before we went live. Like, not that should be a surprise. The Jets played 3 teams that are better than them. And in 2 of those 3 games, they were within a field goal away from potentially winning that game. Now, again, the Bucs game is different context. They didn't play well in that game and they were outplayed for most of it. But there's reasons to be critical of Darren Muji, of Aaron Glenn. You could point to, hey, they didn't go out and get a wide receiver 2. The defensive end line or defensive end depth is non-existent. You could point to some roster decisions, like Xavier Gibson was on the week 1 roster. Probably shouldn't have been. Michael Clemens is still hanging around. He probably shouldn't be. There's other reasons to be critical, legitimate reasons. I'm not going to be critical of a head coach for showing passion for his team, especially like you said, when Jets fans, that same portion of the fan base that is criticizing Aaron Glenn for being too passionate were likely the same ones that were saying that Robert Saleh, Adam Gase, and Todd Bowles were not passionate enough. So make up your minds, be critical about the actual on-field product. I could care less about the other stuff.
Certainly, and the bigger news of the day that I think kicked off our afternoon today, that isn't exactly what you want to see, that being New York Jets linebacker Quincy Williams on the final year of his current contract, being placed on injured reserve after suffering a shoulder injury in Sunday's loss. I'll say this about Quincy, Justin. The athleticism, just his ability, the spark that he brings to the defense and a linebacker unit that has really struggled mightily to open the year. And he's had his fair share of struggles as well. I'm going to pull up this picture and a tweet that I put out this morning saying how this photo truly encapsulates the Jets' tackling woes. For context here, Justin, this was on Bucky Irving's 25-yard gain that I saw when reviewing the All-22 film this morning. So I literally do not know how you allow 25 yards on that play. Quincy is there ready to wrap him up. And then you have a whole sea of defenders, including, I can't tell who that is, but someone in a 3-point stance there. You have Michael Clemens just in the middle of nowhere, sums up everything he's done with the Jets. And then Brandon Stevens all the way back there. The fact that you allow a 25-yard gain on that play is inexcusable. However, I digress. I'll say this about Quincy, Justin. High character individual, very good football player, someone who I've spoken with a handful of times, a great person. I will say this about what I've seen on film this year. I don't think the Jets are going to miss Quincy as much as most people think. The athleticism they're going to miss, the heavy hitting they're going to miss. But when I've gone back and I looked at the film, he's really been reckless and he's kind of gone off script in the sense on a handful of these Steve Wilks play calls, which, by the way, a lot of people are coming after Steve Wilks. Can he get better in multiple ways? Absolutely. I think the Jets' defensive struggles, however, are more of a product of the fact that they don't have the personnel to execute his system and what he wants to do. I'll say this, however, without Quincy, we're going to get a big look at Francisco Mauigoa, who this team selected in the 5th round as potential replacement for Williams down the line. As, look, he doesn't deliver a strong end of the year and the Jets don't win football games. He unfortunately may not be a New York Jet next season, and that's just the harsh reality. It's nothing against him as a player. It just has to do where this team stands from where they're developing with Aaron Glenn, where they're developing in this new regime, and where Quincy is about to turn 30 years old, wanting to go to a contending team and getting a chance to chase a Super Bowl before the end of his career. So I just don't think it would match up on both sides. However, we're going to see Mauigoa, and we're going to see what this linebacker room is really made of now. Is Jamie Sherwood able to step up after a lackluster open of the year? We're going to miss Quincy's athleticism, however.
Yeah, I'll say this first about Quincy Williams. This is somebody who had every right to demand a new contract in the offseason, especially after his teammate, Jamie Sherwood, got paid $15 million a year and, deserved at the time. It's been a rough start for Sherwood this year, but I don't think many Jets fans were opposed to that contract at the time. But Quincy Williams making $6 million a year on his current contract. He had every single right to demand a new contract, and I think a lot of players in his shoes, a lot of people in his shoes would have done that. Instead, he pretty much stayed quiet, and he did not make an issue out of it, despite the fact that he was wholly underpaid relative to his performance on the field, relative to his importance to this football team. And it breaks my heart to see him suffer what could be a potentially serious injury. We don't know the extent of it. We do know he's on injured reserve. He will miss a minimum of 4 games. The report is that it's not season ending, so that's at least good, but we don't know how long he's going to miss. But it really sucks for a guy who, he sacrificed a lot for the team in the offseason and then was entering a contract year. I hope this injury doesn't cost him a lot of money. That's my first thought about this, is that, like you mentioned, wonderful human being. I don't think you'll find anybody that is going to speak ill of Quincy Williams as a person on or off the field. He is what every NFL locker room aspires to have in a football player. But yeah, I think some of what you said is fair about his performance this year. Both of the linebackers, I think, had underperformed through 2 weeks. And it's just a discipline problem. Like that's what it always has been with Quincy too. It's that he is so supremely talented, but he has a tendency to overrun plays. He has a tendency to, get more personal fouls probably than the average linebacker, just because he is throwing his body around at people. And we saw that a little bit this year too. And he can get a little lost in coverage at times. Still a fantastic player. I would have been fairly confident. I thought he was also having a really good game. I know he missed a couple of tackles, but he was flying around out there. And, that's something that this Jets defense needs, is that intensity. And you can't replace that. I think he's an irreplaceable player, even despite his flaws. But yeah, like you mentioned, this is going to be a major opportunity for other linebackers in that room to step up. You need to see Jamien Sherwood step up and be that, that player that he was last year, where he was voted team MVP for this Jets team in 2024. He was a very, very good football player. I believe he received an all-pro vote as well. So he's a very good player. They need him to be better. And now the rest of that room, they also lost Marcelino McCrary-Ball, who, he's had his struggles this year too, but he was likely going to be the guy that filled in for Quincy Williams if, once Williams was hurt. Now he's on IR too. So you're turning to Kiko Maligoa, your 5th round pick this year, and he's going to take on a much larger role in that defense as we expected. Honestly, kind of similar to Jamien Sherwood in his rookie year when he kind of had to step. The Jets had a slew of linebacker injuries back in 2021. Sherwood had to step in, and then unfortunately he tore his Achilles. But those were meaningful reps for a young player. You're going to get that with Maligoa now. It's interesting because they, to this point, have kind of viewed him as more so like the backup Mike to Sherwood. But now they can't really use him in that role. They're going to have to play him in that will linebacker role, which is what Quincy Williams is playing. They have some other guys in that room too. It's a lot of guys that I don't think Jets fans will be very familiar with. They just signed Mark Robinson off the practice squad of the Patriots. They have Cam Jones, who they had claimed off waivers right before the start of the season. They have actually, I don't want to say quality depth, but they have name value depth in the form of a few vets. Like they have Cam Jones, who has played enough with the Chiefs, was a core special teamer for them. They have Ben Neiman. They just signed, literally just signed today to their practice squad. Former Super Bowl champ of the Chiefs, has played over 100 games, spent last year in Detroit with Aaron Glenn, 2023 in Denver with Darren Muji, so there's connections there. They have Michael Walker, who was a 4th round pick of the Falcons in 2020, another guy who's bounced around and played a good amount in the NFL. So they have, and Jackson Sermon as well, like you mentioned, undrafted guy. So they have enough bodies in that linebacker room. It is really just going to be a major opportunity to see who's able to step up. Maligoa is probably going to be the first up to get cracks, at that starting lineup.
Honestly, a hot take here. I know he's no longer with the Jets practice squad, but I think someone who would have actually been fit to come up and replace the role of Williams and the physicality and speed and aggressiveness he plays with is Boog Smith. Boog Smith was a 2-star receiver coming out of high school, and then he transferred to linebacker at South Carolina State. And I think the only reason he really stuck around on this team's practice squad from time to time was because of his speed that he showed in the preseason. Sure, he wasn't very fundamentally sound, but that speed and aggressiveness, I think, could have been a fit to potentially replace Williams, give you 10, 15 snaps per game. I'll say this about Maui Noah. When he was first drafted, I had a Miami Hurricanes beat reporter on the show, and he didn't name this direct comparison, but speaking to him, I kind of gauged the comparison to Jamien Sherwood, of him being kind of that leader in the middle of the field. He's not going to play with the physicality. He's not going to play with the aggressiveness of Williams, but this is a perfect opportunity these next at least 4 games for the Miami product to show you guys don't need to pay Quincy Williams this offseason. I'm your long-term guy next to Jamien Sherwood. So that's what he's aiming to show these next few games. On the trade front today, Justin, the Jets did acquire cornerback Jarvis Brownlee from the Tennessee Titans, a move that left a lot of Titans fans in awe, that left a lot of Titans media members, some that I spoke with, in awe. I'll say this about Jarvis Brownlee. I was watching the film and I tweeted out some clips of him. I'll pull those up momentarily, but he's a solid player, and you got some nice value with him. He does commit some penalties, which of course he'll fit in great with the rest of the Jets secondary, given that. But in all seriousness, he's a great tackler. He's a great run stuffer. I'll pull up this clip actually right now from week 1 of the season. Him just staying, let me try to get this up. Him staying stride for stride right on the outside with Cortland Sutton. That was a clip that caught my eye. And there were a few others in there. The other one that was pretty notable right here as he reads Bo Nix's eyes and just dissects this screen right away, gets downhill for the stop. I know it might be tough for some of you guys to see, but kind of breaking it down for you guys right there. So solid value. I mean, Darren Muji has shown he's not afraid to give up these late round picks. He did it for Harrison Phillips. He did it for Jawan Briggs ahead of the year. Now Jarvis Brownlee, low risk, high reward move on a young corner with upside and athleticism.
Yeah, I think value is the big thing that stands out to me. Like, you just acquired a 24-year-old starting caliber cornerback with 3 years of team control for the cost of a swap of 6th and 7th round picks. And it was the Ravens 6th round pick that the Jets sent. So it's going to be a late 6th round pick at that. This is, I mean, remarkable value by Darren Muji. And I also spoke to a couple of Titans media members, and they are just as shocked, I think, as the fan base and as Jets fans are. One person I spoke to, they said they were shocked. They called it a very, very weird trade, said that Brownlee was a good young cornerback, and that, he's got a bit of an attitude.
That's exactly what I heard as well.
That was the rap that was given to me. And I think, possibly that, as well as the fact that they have a new GM in there in Tennessee and Mike Borgonzi. And I think that he just might not have been a Borgonzi guy, and they were happy to move off him, I suppose. I mean, he was still a starter this year for them. That's what's crazy about it. He started the first 2 games of the year, and he had an ankle injury, missed this past game. We'll see when he's healthy and cleared to return and play for the Jets. But incredible value deal. And the thing that stands out to me too, and I'm glad you brought up that Broncos game. When I threw on some Jarvis Brownlee highlights as much as I could, before after the trade happened. And the thing that immediately stood out to me was there were so many plays where he's just blowing up screens. And that is, if you watch this Jets team play the first 3 games of the season, they need a DB who can do that. They need a cornerback who is physical, who can defend the run, who can tackle, and is going to blow up screens. And that is exactly what Jarvis Brownlee can do. It's interesting. I don't know exactly where he's going to fit into the puzzle. And I think that's not a bad thing necessarily. I think that, he primarily played outside corner, both at Louisville and in Tennessee, but he probably, at least in my opinion, based on what I've seen of him, I think he projects really well to a nickel corner role in the NFL, to like a slot defender role, mostly because of that physicality, because I want him around near the line of scrimmage where he can blow up those screenplays, where he can defend the run, come on a nickel blitz. Like, I think that's what his best role would be, which makes the projection of the Jets kind of interesting because, you obviously have Brandon Stevens right now at outside corner, and a lot of people immediately jump to, well, the Brownlee trade could be bad news for Stevens. Maybe, like, I'm not saying that's not the case, but I think it might make more sense for it to be bad news for Michael Carter if it's going to be bad news for anybody. The Carter contract is a lot easier to get off of than Stevens. They can move on from Carter after the season. They'll take a little bit of dead cap, but it's feasible. They can't really do that with Stevens. And Carter has sneakily been just as bad as Stevens, if not worse, I think. And, it's unfortunately a situation where, he was hurt all of last year. He was playing through a back injury and he struggled. And it was, we kind of wrote it off as, well, he was playing hurt. He's going to bounce back this year. He's playing through a shoulder injury right now, but the struggles are still there. And it's now been, a full year plus, going on now. It's his 2nd year in a row that we have seen since we've seen Michael Carter play at a high level. And considering his contract and the fact that Jets can move off him, I do wonder if Brownlee is somebody that they're looking at as potentially playing that nickel role. He's also a lot more physical than Michael Carter is. Carter's just, Brownlee's undersized too, but Brownlee's a lot more physical than Carter is. And I proposed this on Twitter too. And I know a lot of people were quick to say, well, maybe they can move Brandon Stevens to safety. Everyone wants to move Brandon Stevens to safety. I think I don't know if they're going to do this, but I think maybe it makes sense to give Michael Carter some reps at safety. If they're going to move anybody, Carter played some safety at Duke. I think somebody of his size who's had the injury history that he has over the last 2 years might make sense to play him a little bit further away from the line of scrimmage. So he's not playing as physical, and on as many tackle attempts and getting blocked as much. That's something maybe they could consider. I know Andre Sisco's had an up and down start to the year. Tony Adams isn't very good. Malachi Moore is starting there now, and he had some flashes in his first game. Either way, the Jets have a lot of versatility with this Brownlee trade. They have a lot more flexibility. And as far as a value standpoint goes, you can't beat it. It's a great trade.
Certainly. And I kind of want to go back to Sunday's game because we did a media post-game show here on the channel, but we did not do a show yesterday. So I want to kind of get your thoughts, Justin, because since the post game show, I'd watched probably the all 22 back every play about 2 times today. So I really did a deep dive on what happened, and the subtle comment I made about Steve Wilkes there applies for the offense. Well, I think Tanner Engstrand called a very good game on Sunday, and I think his play calling only got better as the game went on. I think the reason that the offense didn't, go quick and get turned on so early and stayed inconsistent is just how conservative Tyrod Taylor was. There were receivers running wide open. Some clips I posted that got a ton of views was one where he just took off for like a 1-yard gain where Tyler Johnson was on a crossing pattern right across the middle of the field. The first play of the game where he took off for like 7 yards, Garrett Wilson darting towards the sideline about 25 yards down the field. And then one in the red zone, I think it was a dump down to Breece Hall where they still got like 7 yards. They were inside the 30-yard line. But Mason Taylor right on a corner route that could have been a touchdown on the first drive of the game that ultimately only resulted in a field goal for the Jets. Look, I like Tyrod Taylor. I think he's a great backup, but I think we saw firsthand why he doesn't throw all that many interceptions yesterday. He really plays conservative. And I'm okay with that if you have a strong defense and you're winning football games because of it, but you can't stay with that conservative label, if you will. And then also, I know there was some blame on Garrett Wilson, but then also throw a pick 6 right before halftime and give your opponent a 3-possession lead heading into the break, Justin.
Yeah, the quarterback play for the Jets has been very bad in 2 of their 3 games. Obviously, Justin Fields had a fantastic week 1 and then followed it up with the worst game of his entire career in week 2. And dare I say, one of the worst Jets quarterback performances that I've ever seen, that's an extremely low bar to clear. So that's pretty crazy that he's accomplished that in just his second game. And then third game, I think the box score numbers look all right for Tyrod. For 3 quarters of that game, he was very bad. You mentioned the conservative nature. Yeah, that tape is littered with a lot of open receivers that Tyrod just did not let it rip to. It's been a couple of times that they have run that dagger concept with Garrett Wilson and Arian Smith, where Smith is running the deep route and he's carrying the safety for the clear out the underneath for Garrett Wilson. He's been open. They've run that a couple of times the last couple of weeks, and they have not gotten it to him once. And he's been open on every one of them. They did it as well in week 1, and Fields was able to find Wilson. That was one of the first completions he had. But it hasn't necessarily been a Tanner Engstrand problem. And I'm with you there. I agree with you 100%. Especially given the personnel that he's working with in this receiving game. Like, they've had receivers that have been open. They've had guys that are open. Even on that pick 6, Mason Taylor was open on that play. There were multiple receivers open. I think Tyler Johnson was open on that play too. Instead, Tyrod does something that a 36-year-old quarterback should not be doing, which is throwing across his body late to the boundary. Like, that is pick 6 city. That is the most likely play to result in a pick 6 in the NFL. Yeah, Garrett could make a better play on the ball. He's always going to be the one that takes ownership of that. He's correct. Like, I think if he makes a more aggressive play, it's probably not a pick 6, maybe not even a pick, but it's still a very reckless play from Tyrod Taylor. So yeah, I think the quarterback play has been very bad the first 2 weeks, or the 2 of the first 3 weeks. You look at, hey, why, people have been talking about this on Twitter. Why isn't Mason Taylor doing more? It's like, well, the quarterback play has been bad. There's been plays where he's open. He's open. The quarterback play has just not been good. And ultimately in the NFL, if the quarterback play isn't good, it's going to be hard to win games. And that's just the reality the Jets find themselves in. I think one of my takeaways from this game was the Jets need Justin Fields. At least this Jets offense needs Justin Fields. And I'm not talking about the week 2 version. Obviously, if you're getting that version of Justin Fields, he will not be starting for this football team for very long, for much longer. But for this offense to function the way that they want it to, they need a quarterback who has at least a threat to run the ball. Like, that is Tyrod Taylor does not have that ability.
I disagree with you there a little. Like, he was shedding tackles in the backfield. He was taking. He's not like Flock. He's not Flacco Rogers. Like, he could still move to the caliber.
He is a capable runner at this stage of his career, but he does not strike fear in defenses. Like, defenses, the Bucs defense was so not afraid of this Jets offense. There was nothing about this Jets offense that made them fearful in any way, which is why they were sending 6 or 7 guys into the backfield every single play for 3 quarters until Todd Bowles got passive, as he does in the 4th quarter. But at least with Fields, obviously in week 2, he was just so completely dog shit that it didn't matter. But if Fields is not if he's not playing like the worst quarterback you've ever seen, there's at least a threat that, hey, maybe we can't do a 6-7 man blitz, because if we do that and there's nobody there to contain Fields, if he gets out of the backfield, he can scramble for 20 yards. Tyrod's not doing that at this stage of his career. He's a capable runner. Like, he's not, like you said, he's not Joe Flacco. He's not Aaron Rodgers. He can move enough. He can escape a little bit, but he's not going to be somebody that you're worried about breaking off a 30-yard run if you're doing a 6-man blitz. You know, that's something you have that threat with Justin Fields. So you can't sell out as much, and not even just against the run, but you can't just sell out and send 6 or 7 guys after the quarterback every single play with Fields. So I think for this Jets offense to function the way they want it to, which, you know, again, the ceiling is still low for this offense, but for it to function the way that they want it to, they need Justin Fields, and they need Justin Fields not necessarily to be as good as he was in week 1, but to at least be competent version of Justin Fields.
Yes, certainly. And I'll say this about the run game that was totally abysmal. When I was watching the All-22, and another reason that I decided to do a second run of the All-22 is because I was trying to figure out what was happening in the run game, because the stat sheet was brutal. And I went back and watched it, and it was like, there weren't any huge holes that Breece Hall was missing. The vision, like, the run game was just awful. Like, it just couldn't function. And the offensive line, like, if someone who didn't watch the game just looked at the stats, the pressures, the sacks they allowed, they'd be like, the offensive line played like crap. The offensive line was fine until third down when Tampa Bay started to send the house. Like, Fashanu had 6 pressures, I think he allowed on Sunday. If you watching the All-22, it didn't look like that. Those 6 pressures came on miscommunications with John Simpson on who to pick up on a 6 or 7-man blitz, like you said. And then when you talk about the right side of the line, I think the sneaky positive that no one's been talking about is how seamless the transition has been with Josh Myers and Joe Tippmann. I tweeted out a clip from the All-22. Tippmann just standing up Vita Vea on the first drive. He looked great. He's been looking like a top 10 guard. And Josh Myers, who's been a bottom 5 guard the past 4 years, bottom 5 center, the past 4 years in this league, is looking like a top 10, a top 15 center as both a run and pass blocker. So they just need to find a way to get this offense going, to get this offense in rhythm, because it's not the play calling. The offensive line can be better, sure, but, you know, it's missing the receivers downfield. And I think Tyrod's a better pocket passer than Justin Fields is. I think Fields fits this team a lot more. Like, if you're talking about one game, who do you want to go win that football game for you? I'll take Tyrod Taylor, but I think starting Tyrod Taylor, I'd rather start Brady Cook the remaining games of the year than start Tyrod Taylor. Personally, that's not saying that Brady Cook gives them a better chance to win, but at least, like, there's something there, the young, the shot in the dark on the upside. I heard Joe Beningo say earlier today that he thinks the Jets should just start Tyrod Taylor the rest of the year, and it gives them the
how is that your takeaway after watching Sunday?
Yeah,
that's crazy.
I mean, he wasn't great. Number one, like, if the Jets hung 30, if the Jets won the game and it was like 30-20, something like that, and Tyrod threw for 300 yards, picked up another 100 on the ground, and looked great, sure, we could have that conversation. But he says, I think what Joe said, I wrote it up for JetX, was like, I've seen all I need to see out of Justin Fields, blah, blah, blah. We know what he is. Start Tyrod Taylor. And it's just like, you get no benefit out of starting Taylor because he has no future here.
Not only do you get no benefit, it's complete, like, just reactionary takes. We saw Justin Fields play one of the best games of his career in week 1. One of the best games by Jets quarterback in a while. Like, he was great in week 1. I thought it was as close to a flawless performance as it gets. I know week 2 was horrific. Again, I just said that was Luke Falk levels of bad. That was a terrible performance. But, like, we've now seen the spectrum. We have the Justin Fields spectrum. We have his performances the rest of the year will likely be somewhere between week 1 and week 2. And that's okay. But I don't know how anybody could watch that Sunday game and think the takeaway is we need to start Tyrod Taylor. Like, one, again, obviously, like you said, Connor, like, it doesn't benefit the team in any way to start Tyrod Taylor moving forward. There's a 0% chance that Tyrod Taylor is your starting quarterback week 1, 2026. There's at least a non-zero chance that Justin Fields will be your starting quarterback week 1, 2026. You want to at least give him a chance more than just 2 games, one of which he was awesome in. But yeah, I don't understand how the takeaway, like, I agree that I think he's probably a better pocket passer than Fields. And I think the floor of the offense is higher with Tyrod Taylor, but the ceiling is a lot lower. And again, for this Jets offense to function the way they want it to, they need somebody who has that dual threat ability, like Justin Fields does, who can at least do, like, the Jets offense lacks explosiveness. They lack any kind of anything that can strike fear into defenses. Justin Fields' rushing ability is one of the few, like, tactical advantages that they can exploit. They don't get that with Tyrod Taylor. So yeah, while the floor is higher with Tyrod Taylor and he's a better passer, a better pocket passer, you remove one of your biggest advantages, one of the only advantages that this Jets offense has over opposing defenses. I think that's a very bad take.
Justin, thank you for the time as always. I will end with this question for you. Does Justin Fields start on Monday night? That could be for health. The Jets aren't benching Justin Fields. Glenn made that clear. Is he starting Monday night?
Not like if he's healthy, does he start? Or is
Yeah.
that what you're asking? Oh yeah, if he's healthy, absolutely. 100%.
Oh no, I mean, do you think he will be healthy enough?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not a doctor. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not a concussion specialist. I'm not a neurologist. I hope so. I'd rather watch him play on Monday than Tyrod Taylor. You know, I think that the Jets have a real opportunity to beat Miami. The vibes are very bad with the Dolphins, as I think Jets fans know. And while the Dolphins are probably a better team on paper, I think the Jets absolutely have a chance to win that game. And for the sake of this fan base that's ready to riot after 3 games, I really hope they're able to pull it out.
I think Antoine Staley, who I was talking to a few weeks ago off air, and I think he gave this prediction on air as well. I think he's the Jets starting 0-6, and that's what he put out for the season. Like, we were having this debate on my Sunday show, the Next Gen show, and my co-host Chris, who's very optimistic on this team, had this team winning 9 games. Justin,
Woo.
9 games.
Bold.
Games. He said they had a better chance of starting 5-1 than 1-5.
Well, listen. I know your Next Gen show is full of people that have not been around as long as I think others. I think that Chris will learn eventually that maybe the Jets optimism. Honestly, you're most likely to find optimistic Jets fans and people under the age of like 25. So that makes sense.
And I that's what I said to Chris, and we text through every game, and he's learning the lesson that I did last year, because entering 2023, fluke Aaron Rodgers got hurt 4 plays in. And then last year I was like, there is no world where this team could win under 10 games. Like, before the year started, like there's always a world. The pessimists had them winning 9-10 games. I had them going 12-5. And I was like, there is no world where this team can't make the playoffs. There is no world where this team doesn't win under 10 games. And then last year I just learned that, like, this team's freaking cursed, and they're never going to
There's always a way, Connor. The Jets will always find a way to underperform and to disappoint. That's what they do. That's what they've made a living out of doing for decades.
It sucks. Justin, thank you so much for the time. So, you got any final thoughts before we wrap things up?
Let's hope for a win on Sunday. Or on Monday. I don't want to see this fan base. If the Jets like get blown out on national TV in Miami, like, then I'll be like, okay, I criticize Aaron Glenn. Go at him, right? But I hope that doesn't happen. I hope we're talking about Aaron Glenn's first victory, and that we're talking about the Dolphins being 0-4, and that Mike McDaniel's hot seat is, seats heating up, and we're not talking about Aaron Glenn. I don't want to be criticizing more Aaron Glenn after Monday.
Yeah, and I hope it's a good game, because I'm going to be up late and the writing that I have to do after, and I have school the next day. And
that's right.
And to open the school year, Monday was the only day I didn't have any free periods. Like, Wednesday, I have like 2 or 3 free periods, something like that. Monday was the only day I didn't have free periods. So I was like, I came in after the Jets like 30-10 loss, and I was just like, classes all day from 8 through 3:30.
Man.
It was just brutal. But since my schedule actually has been changed since I switched out of a class, so now I do have a free period on Monday, which means I don't have any on Tuesday now.
There you go.
So should the Jets lose on Monday night, I will be running on about 6 hours of sleep and have 8 classes that day, and my head will be in 20 different directions.
See, that is something that other Jets reporters, analysts, people who cover this team, content creators, they don't got to worry about that. So you are at an unfair disadvantage, my friend.
It's brutal, but you play with it. You play where it lies. So that's the way we're gonna have to deal with. Anyways, Justin, you're the best. Thank you for the time, ladies and gentlemen. He's Justin Freed of the Jet Press. I'm your host, Connor Long, right here on NY Flight Jets Talk, saying have a great rest of your evening, everyone. And as always, JTS, baby. Jets. Peace out, folks.